Thanks for coming, man. This is awesome.
Dude, my pleasure. I'm excited.
Yeah, for those who obviously didn't see that before, but you brought in some pieces of artwork to gift me and Sam. So I really appreciate that, and that's gonna be up in my room for sure. Probably
Okay.
tonight because I need more things to set up.
Yeah.
So
Blick has a sale on frames. It's 17 by 22, so standard.
wow, there you go. So those where do you get those printed? Those are
I
like
do.
really high quality.
Yeah,
Oh wow,
thank
you
you. I
do them
do.
yourself.
Yeah.
So that's that must require a very big printer,
I
right?
do. I have a very big printer in my beautiful apartment in Harlem,
Mm.
where one of the rooms I've converted into my studio. So in that room, I have the printer for photography, my printer for scripts, my canvases, easels, paint stuff, all of my film equipment. So that room is dedicated to the creative aspect of life. Yeah.
I feel like there's something to be said about looking at images on a larger scale, right? I feel like you get a different perspective
You do.
when
You do.
when it's blown up, right? Because I mean, you look at them through just a tiny viewfinder when you take them, but when you blow them up, you start to look around the frame and like all these little nuances that maybe you didn't realize before.
Well, the funny thing about photography for me is that I never. The funny thing about my life is that honestly, I never sought out to be an artist. Photography came as a fluke. I was working in a restaurant in LA. A group of friends of mine and I who worked together, we decided to create this production company for shits and giggles, filming, stupid little skits, comedy stuff, Funny or Die or whatever kind of stuff. And I put in most of the money for the camera. It was a Canon Rebel T3i. And, it dispersed, and the company, it wasn't really officially a company, but, we just stopped, and I kind of inherited this camera. And I was working at my desk on the computer, and the camera had been sitting on the floor for like 3 months. I didn't know how to turn the thing on. So, and I'm sitting at my desk, and I just happened to turn and look, and I'm seeing this camera. I'm like, it was like fucking $800,
Yeah.
man. Like, either pawn it, sell it, give it away, or figure it out.
Right.
And so I chose to figure it out. And at the time, I was working in a restaurant downtown LA called Kendall's at the Music Center, and I had my little Mercedes convertible at the compressor, the black compressor at the time. And so I lived in Victoria Park, and you would take the 10 freeway downtown, but you could pass through Skid Row. And Skid Row is a portion of a section in LA with the highest density of homeless people. A place that I was very, very, very familiar with personally because I would go down there often either to use drugs or sleep or whatever. And when I was in that state. And so what I would do was I would drive around Skid Row, and with the top down, it was a hardtop convertible. I would put the top down. I would have a zoom lens, and I would just try to press buttons to see what happens, taking images of homeless people. And that was my first series that I kind of started to shoot. It's called Matthews 2540. One of my managers, brilliant human being and an incredible guy. His name is David Stork. He was my like big manager at the restaurant, and he's an incredible photographer. So I took some images and I took them to David just to get his opinion because I didn't, like I said, I figured out how to turn the thing on, and then I would just press buttons and see what happens. And sometimes it would be overexposed,
Right.
underexposed, or whatever. I would miss a picture or whatever. But the times that I was able to get a shot, they were okay. And so I took him to David. I said, David Stork. I said, David, I want you to take a look at these and give me your opinion. He said, Sage, you have an eye. He goes, what's your process? I was like, top down in the Mercedes, zoom lens, click and go. And he gave me a word of advice that has changed everything about me. He said, Sage, first of all, get out of the car. Put the top back up, lock your doors, you're in Skid Row, get out of the car and go talk to your subject.
Right.
And before you even take your camera out and and then he said, and I quote, capture the poetry. And so what photography taught me in terms of, if it's blown up in the
Mm-hmm.
size and proportions, what photography taught me is that I never saw before. I looked, but I never saw before. When I started shooting, I started seeing light and shadows, contrast and composition in ways that, just went past me before. And, the beautiful thing, one of the beautiful things about photography is that unlike painting, which is kind of a spiritual conversation, or poetry, which is an introspective, uh, emotional conversation, or filmmaking, which is a perspective,
Mm.
um, photography is actual moment that has never, ever, ever happened before and will never, ever, ever happen again. When you click that button, you're capturing something that will never happen again. And you could have 1,000 people standing in a line, all shooting the same thing, and get 1,000 different
Right.
photographs.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so David, I tell you, when he said that, capture the poetry, and then you start looking for the poetry and not for the situation.
Well, it's almost like I like what you said about having like if you line everyone up, it's different. Each person's gonna have a different photo, and that photo will never happen again.
Hmm.
It is a one like time capsule in the infinite, fidelity of the universe. It just keeps going, right? You just
Yeah,
have a moment captured, and each person would capture it differently.
yeah,
I love that because I feel like a lot of people get repetitive almost in terms of like their behaviors and maybe they just see as if oh everyone else could capture this, but no, it's you.
hmm,
Your photo is you, your perspective is you, and that you'll take that to the grave,
yeah,
right? Your perspective will outlive you,
yeah.
right?
I think it was Ansel Adams. I'm not sure, but I think it was him who was being interviewed. And the person interviewing him said, "Well, what made you take this picture?" And the response was, "It's not this picture you're looking at. What you're looking at is every book I've read, every movie I've seen, every experience I've had, every tear that I cried, every laugh, every joy, every pain, every sorrow that led to the moment of me pressing this button." And when I understood that, it put everything into context. Like, you know, um, we do become repetitive or apathetic, even. And I think, unfortunately, for I believe that art has always been on the forefront of revolution, transformation. And in that apathy, particularly with the advance of technology, because now we're so ultra distracted that
Right.
we are no longer engaging, many of us are no longer engaging in our emotional or spiritual condition, which feeds or informs the artistic expression. And I think there's a lot to be said about that what we do as creatives, um, whether you're well known or not, you're impacting something. You're you're capturing something. You're translating something through your work.
And you feel as though that's been lost.
I feel not lost completely. I feel that so there's an oversaturation of voices that are speaking the wrong language,
Mm.
if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
What are they speaking the wrong language because they're not accessing that awareness and emotion that you should be bleeding into your work?
I think so.
Yeah.
That would be an accurate assessment, in my opinion. That we're excuse me, that we're more concerned about likes or
Right.
clicks than we are about what am I saying, what am I capturing, how am I contributing.
What what can people do to gain that awareness back?
I think for me, it's been an introspective journey. Um, being born to two teenagers, unmarried in Wyandanch, Long Island in 1969, where it wasn't very popular to have kids out of wedlock while you're still in high school. Growing up in my formative years in a commune in Northern California, um, having being sexually assaulted in that experience, coming back to New York in 1979 with these two people, my mother and her then husband, who were not strangers, but they weren't my primary caretakers in the commune, and having that trauma, to being class president in high school, to being a crackhead in New York. All of those experiences inform who and what I am. The Yoruba people would call that my ori, my path. Um, and looking at that from the perspective of how this informs me as opposed to this happened to me. Like we get so
Mm,
caught up in the external aspects, and very seldom do many of us dive deep enough into the internal, the spiritual, to make that connection, to articulate, or to, like I said, to translate. When I'm painting, I often say, or being interviewed in interviews, I often say that this painting is done through me, not by me, and oftentimes not even for me. And what I mean by that is that, I'm untrained in everything I do. Like, I've never had formal training in any, from painting, the poetry. Poetry
right.
was a fluke because I'm kind of dyslexic. If I'm not dyslexic, I'm a horrible speller. So to write my first book, a collection of my poetry, Naked Under My Clothes, was like, the fuck? Like,
Right. Yeah.
what?
Right.
Um, the painting, I was terrified of painting, and I was living in D.C., strung out on crack, and in a bar, and met this older dude. His name was Walter Neal, who saw me doodling. And even the doodling came from the trauma of my childhood. Like, I would
Really.
draw because there was so much violence when we got left the commune. It was a place called Synanon. When we left the commune, we moved. We were in Harlem for 6 months, then moved to Hempstead, where I grew up. And there was so much trauma involved in that experience that I would draw just to escape.
This is a coping mechanism,
Yeah, as a coping
almost.
mechanism.
Wow.
Never like, oh, I'm going to be this artist one day. It
Right.
was just
Right.
like, I'm trying to save my life. Like, my first suicide attempt was when I was 10 years old. So that kind of, that's around the
Mm-hmm.
time I found doodling. But all of these things, all of these experiences, again, inform everything I do. So I try to approach them without judgment, or I was bad sage here or good sage here. It was just, this is what I've experienced to get to this point, to be able to translate what the universe wants me to translate. And again, done through me, not by me, and oftentimes not for me. I've painted things that I thought sucked, that were like, I'm the worst painter ever. Like, I suck nuts. This is horrible. And then somebody would say, you just painted my uncle or my dad. Could I buy that? I was
Mm-hmm.
like, huh? And they would show me a picture of their loved one. I would look at the painting. I was like, holy shit.
Wow. And that was unintentional,
I,
you're saying.
I never
Wow.
saw the person before in my life.
Wow.
I've
That's very
never saw
interesting.
the person before, and this happened several times, where I did a painting, and I'm more figurative abstract, so I don't do portraitures. But even in the abstraction, the resemblance was uncanny. In that there was one piece I did, um, where even the pose was identical.
Oh, wow.
Even the pose from the picture in the painting, they were posed this exact
And
same way.
and you're just drawing when you're like thinking about the posing, you're just kind of taking what comes to you and you're drawing that pose.
No, yes, Yes, actually.
And then that just happened to mirror another picture of
Exactly,
something. Wow,
exactly. So like I try never to approach a canvas with intention. What I try
okay.
to do, to the best of my ability, is remove my ego from the process. I learned a valuable lesson. So um, I moved to Los Angeles in March of '97. Uh, the reason being because I was living in D.C. at the time. I got into rehab in '93, left there. It was a year program. I left in 6 months and moved to D.C. with a friend of mine. I went to high school with Patrick and his people, relapsed and was back on the streets again. And I was living in, I think, Georgetown, near Rock Creek Park, wherever that was. And I was staying with this older dude, is Richard, who was retired from he was Armenian. He was retired from the State Department. And it was a great arrangement because he was on meth, I was on crack, and we never fucked with each other's drugs. And he had the money, so I was like, okay, that works. And I was sitting on the couch. I was watching an episode of Cops, L.A. It was a special edition. It's like bad
Yeah,
boys.
yeah.
What you gonna do? And this, and I always hated that show, but I was watching it. And this guy went to go buy some crack, and it was like this undercover thing, and they fucked him up. They like threw him on the hood of the car and like jacked his ass. And I'm like, I need to move there because I'll be afraid to buy crack. So I moved to LA in '97, March of '97. I remember that because a couple of days afterwards, a couple of days of my being there, that's when Biggie was killed, which was crazy because I was at that party and I was sitting with Biggie, like Chris, for like an hour before he was murdered. So that's always
Oh
my
wow.
like. That's when I was in LA. Um, and the thing is, and then I got sober in LA, and I was sober for 11 years, but I hadn't stopped painting. Um, and then after 11 years, I had this gnarly relapse that almost killed me. And by this time, I'm on my second Mercedes. I'm living in a gated community. So I've gone from sleeping in Penn Station and picking out of a garbage can to eat to, working in top end restaurants in LA, AOC, the Patina Group. I'm on my second Mercedes, the silver one now. Um, Gated community, the bells and whistles.
Right.
And I had this relapse that almost killed me. And what happened was I came home one day after a run, a few days on the street smoking crack. And I had no more money or drugs or access to either. And I was in so much pain. So I had these old dried up acrylics that I brought with me from DC under the sink in this piece of canvas. And I laid down on the floor and scratched out this painting. And then I snitched on myself. I told everyone I was fucking up and I was about to die. My job, which should have fired me, opted to give me time off, and um, my landlady was like a second mother to me, so she didn't rent officially the apartment. So I'm in rehab, and this is 2013. I checked myself in sober living in 14, but at the end of 13, in November, we had my first exhibit. It was a group exhibit. I showed my photography, the Crack series. You had other artists showing their work. I checked myself into rehab in on in 2014. So I'm in rehab while simultaneously I'm being named as one of the 40 black artists to watch in the Griot, based on the photography of the Crack series. And I had nothing but time, so I started painting and had amassed a body of work. Have two solo shows simultaneously. I'm being interviewed, podcasts, interviewed, 4 documentaries made about me, and I'm in rehab.
Wow.
It was hysterical paradox. But, people started purchasing my work and collecting my work. And I sold my first not first painting, but The first time I sold a painting for $12,000, and I was giddy as all get out. Like I'm like, holy shit, $12,000, and I cashed a check, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm blah blah blah.
So this painting though, so the whole engaging with the craft of painting, that started when and why did you start that?
It officially started in D.C.
Okay.
With Walter, who saw my doodlings, and he ended up taking me, excuse me, to an art supply store and buying me $100 worth of supplies. Now the thing about that was I could draw with a number 2 pencil. I was great with that, but I was always terrified of painting because I somehow figured that if you make a mistake, like with the number 2 pencil, I could just turn it upside down,
Yeah, yeah.
erase, and start over again. But with painting, I figured, well, if you make a mistake, it's
You're
paint,
fucked.
you're
Yeah.
fucked. What I actually end up realizing is that there are no mistakes. There's just process. And then, I was still on the streets, so I would paint, and if you liked my painting, I would give it to you for like $10 so I could buy some crack or a Big Mac or something. But then I moved to LA. I had stopped painting, but other things I was doing, like I started shooting in 2011. Um, I started writing poetry earlier than that. I published my first book in 2001, Naked Under My Clothes. Then we did the CD of Naked Under My Clothes, and then the short films that came later. But when I was in rehab is when I really started painting profusely. And, shows started happening and people started collecting my work. Then I sold the $12,000 piece. And what that moment taught me was freedom. Because after I sold that painting for $12,000, I stood on my deck trying for a month, trying to paint another $12,000 painting. And objectively, I produced nothing but trash. It was complete garbage. It might have been aesthetically pleasing, but it was complete garbage because what it lacked was soul. What it lacked was vulnerability and our authenticity. It lacked truth. I went to the canvas with a specific
Goal in
intention.
mind, right?
Yeah, I'm going to paint another $12,000 painting. And it was all garbage. So what that taught me was, removing the ego and trying to allow the spirit, the universe, God force, God voice, whatever that thing is to speak.
Do you think it's curiosity too? Just going to the canvas with curiosity,
Oh, absolutely.
right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And that's part of that's curiosity to me has always been a part, an ingredient to humility. Knowing that you don't know and being interested in finding out, navigating through and seeing what happens if this
Right.
color goes here, or as part of that process, that curiosity is vitally important to me.
And you saw, taking that approach instead, you saw much more success artistically than having to go in mindset of like, I need to make $12,000 off this next painting.
Totally,
Right.
totally and and I define success as: am I pleased? Am I content?
Right.
Am I satisfied? Am I happy? Was I honest?
Honesty. Yeah, I feel like honesty and curiosity,
Yeah.
they're intertwined because you have to be honest with yourself as an artist in terms of, is this really me? Am I doing this for, like you're saying, a desired outcome? What do I want to explore? What do I want to maybe uncover about myself? I find that's the most interesting part, is like, and this only happened, I'm talking about my films, so like, you're talking about painting, but it's the art, right?
Thing.
Only until I started talking with people, this one specific girl who, she's a very talented tattoo artist, and I was talking to her about my film concept that I've been kind of working on silently for the past year and a half, and she told me, because she also knew a piece of work that I did in the past as well, and she bridged the two and said, there's a common through line and theme here that maybe you're almost coping with some sort of trauma that happened in your life, and it's so beautiful to see that thematically translate throughout your films. And I never saw that, and I'm like, well, that's true, but I was just being honest and curious when making it. I never thought like, oh, I'm going to cope with this, so I'm going to make this. It was just honest work.
Mm-hmm.
And then when someone looks at it, they can see, oh, wow, these are very much similar messaging. And maybe that's a window into yourself, right? Do you see that with your work?
All of it.
All right.
Is interesting because each limb is a different animal in itself. The right arm is the painting, the left arm the poetry, and so on and so forth. But what people with the painting is what's fascinating is that I could do a painting, and again, I'm so immersed in the experience of creation that when it's done, when the canvas says, "Don't touch me anymore, I'm good," and then you step back as the artist and you see a piece, and then you could objectively be an observer. And what's interesting about the painting is frequently somebody else will look at the piece and then inform me of things they see that I never saw or even intended. And that happens a lot because they're like, "Oh, you see the face there?" And I'm like, "Oh
Yeah, yeah,
shit,
yeah, yeah,
there
yeah.
is no what?"
Yeah, yeah.
Filmmaking or the poetry is because it is so personal, and being able to affect people in a different language. Filmmaking, the same. Um, you know, when I wrote and produced Naked Under My Clothes, the anthology, no idea what I was doing. Like, I started my first production company, Reindeer Productions,
Right.
in 2015, I think. I brought two friends in, John Bynes, who's an amazing editor. For 30 years, he worked on Chappelle's Show, Sex and the City, all these things. And then another guy, Jay Bennett, who had 2 Emmys. But anyway, he ended up robbing my house.
That was in my notes here. I
Was
said
it?
that,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Long
that,
way his story.
yeah,
We'll get to that.
yeah,
Um, you know, I wrote and produced this anthology, right? When we released the second installation, Woman, and I was very fortunate. I had no idea I didn't know what an Apple box was. Don't ask me a C
right.
stand. I didn't know what a C stand was. I just knew I had something I wanted to say in this language. And I had a great cast: Tabitha Brown, Eamon Joseph, Masai Powell, Chucky Love, Nick Few, just incredible, incredible friends and talented people. But when we released Woman, there's one young lady on Facebook hit me up. I have 5,000 friends on Facebook. I don't know 5,000 people personally. So we were following each other, and she messaged me. She said, "Sage, I just wanted to let you know something. Um, I'm pregnant and I have a toddler, and I was in an abusive relationship, and I watched your Woman video and I left. So the power of film speaks differently than the power of painting, photography, poetry, or whatever. So in your vision, in your curiosity in navigating through the creation of your work is part of the process. But the jackpot one is doing it, because you're gonna, and we all face so many huge obstacles like that dark space that's trying to diminish the light. Like, one of my mantras is, nothing offends the darkness more than the light, and then the darkness will fight to retain its perceived power. So we're going to be faced with those obstacles, but the lives that we get to affect through our work, when honest, when curious, when humble, when vulnerable, when authentic, and not just with the intention to get, clicks and likes.
So the darkness is the challenges you face in making the work.
The darknesses are the challenges that you face making the work. The darkness could be, your internal voice that tells you you're not good enough, that you're a piece of shit, that you're fat, you're ugly, that no one loves you, that your voice doesn't matter, that you can't. That's the biggest
It
darkness.
can, yeah.
That the biggest, the darkest, darkety dark darkness is that thing that says, you can't. Why try? Don't do it. You can't. You're gonna fail.
Hmm. Right.
You know,
Right.
that's the motherfucker that's trying to kill you,
Right.
and not kill just you, but kill your impact that you're here to make upon this world, into other people's lives as well.
Right.
It's not about me, but we are each uniquely constructed, like wires. I transmit this frequency, and your wire transmits this frequency. If we're the ones snipping our wires, our own wires, there's no transmission of the frequency. That's the darkness. The darkness is the scissors. Like,
And the wire leads to someone's house that has no power that you can light up
that you
or
can light up.
something. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So so going back to your addiction and the relationship with painting you had during it, after you sort of recovered, right, and you were working through rehab, how did your relationship with painting change? Did it kind of transform into something else post addiction?
You're more in touch. And that's a great question, because in the process of getting sober, one of my biggest fears was, well, how am I going to paint? I pour all of my pain into this thing, and so if I'm not drinking or smoking crack, how am I going to paint? And the thing about that I think a lot of artists are different. We're different. We're just fundamentally different. We exist in a paradoxical matrix. The creative energy, the God force, the universal spirit of creation, and living in the matrix of reality or perceived reality, bills and all of those things, race and gender,
Right.
orientation, all of those things, and money and all of that stuff. And they're paradoxical. So you'll find a lot of artists are like drug addicts, suicidal, crazy, because we can't many of us can't reconcile those two worlds. And that's in part, my addiction was in part due to that.
Yeah.
So getting sober was, well, I can't plug into this thing that allows me to create that thing. What ended up happening was I wasn't creating from this space. Now I'm creating from a different space, but still creating. Now I'm more aware, more aligned, more balanced with the process of creation, as opposed to I don't like to use this word in this way, but for lack of a better word, now I'm not polluted from my addiction. Now I'm clear, and so my perspective, my vision is different.
But you could also draw from a lot of experiences that you had when you were struggling with addiction, right?
Yeah.
That are now, you're translating into art now, right?
Yeah. You draw from every moment of your life, from every breath you've taken. That's why I try never to judge. Like I'm very open with my addiction in my life, because it's mine. Like, what are you gonna say? Oh, say you were a homeless crackhead. I'm like, yeah. Didn't you read that article? Like, did you read the interview?
Well, you live and breathe it, and it bleeds into your work, so it's everything, right?
Everything.
It's everything about you.
Yeah, but it's everything about us. That's what art is.
Mm-hmm.
Art is a manifestation or a culmination of everything we've experienced: the good, the bad, the ugly,
And that it'll somehow manifest into your
manifest into every word you write, every composition, every painting, every photograph, everything.
Do you think also maybe in your style behaviors, your just life choices? I mean, everything is just built on the thing that happened in the past.
And in a way, that's half of the boat. but with only half of the boat, you're still going to sink. So the other half of the boat is the curiosity and exploration of possibility of what else can I explore in me, not anchoring oneself in the
Mm.
past or
Mm-hmm.
this moment or that experience. October 17th, 2017, this guy, Jay Bennett, robbed my house. He was like a brother to me at one point. He was one of my business partners. He stole literally all my shit, all of it, all my shit, including my hard drives with my work on it. You can't resell a hard drive or pawn it. You're doing that to
Right.
hurt.
Right.
You're trying to inflict pain. If I were to anchor myself in that moment, in that pain, or if I were to anchor myself in the loss of my mother, who I picked up on Monday and was gone on Wednesday in 2019, January 23rd, she passed. She transitioned. If I'm anchoring in those things, I can't move. You know, we have to use those moments, those experiences, the good ones, the newborn baby and the breakup, as waves or winds that propel us, not keep us sessile in this moment. Is that okay? This happened. Now what?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Also, though, like, let's say you want to tell a story about something that happened in your past,
Mhm.
but a lot has happened since that event. You're drawing from perspectives you have now, looking back on an event that happened, and maybe you can tell it in a different light, or you shed light onto different perspectives from an event.
That is so funny because that's exactly one of the things I'm working on right now. Is my next project is called Collisions and Compilations: The Life and Body of Work of Sage Gallen. So when you're creating something, when you're I think especially with painting per se, and somebody looks at the painting, well, what were you thinking when you did, or what were you feeling when you did it? And you're like, honestly, I wasn't thinking or feeling. If you want to be informed by an artist's work, you have to best be informed by an artist's work. You have to be informed by with their life. And so I'm infusing my autobiography with my body of work. So it's going to be like a coffee table book, infused with, again, my autobiography. So I'm reliving these moments of my past and remembrance. And it's so ironic because it's almost like I'm watching a movie of the person I used to be who no longer exists. And I'm simultaneously trying to be objective and as honest as I can,
Right.
but not exploitive of that person who no longer exists.
Exploitive in terms of how, like, almost portraying them in a bad light,
Portraying them in a dishonest light,
dishonest.
like
Right.
putting more on the ugly or more on or not being
Right.
honest.
Well, oftentimes we when we look back at ourselves, we try to beat ourselves up.
Yeah,
So it's hard
yeah.
to balance that.
And also being like, I can't tell that story. But you have to tell that story, not because it's your story, but because somebody else might be going through. Again, I'm transparent in interviews and everything of my life, not because it's like, oh well, I was a homeless crackhead, blah blah blah, whatever, and look at me now, whoop de whoop. It has nothing to do with that. What I do know is that, like myself at one time, there is somebody who's strung out, or there is somebody who is suicidal, who may have the same Ginsu knife to their wrist that I had to mine, and who may hear something or see something that might affect them.
Right.
They may see someone and be like, well, if that motherfucker could make it out, maybe I can too. I mean, I'm not that special. I'm not that amazing. I'm not that unique.
Has your mission, because I kind of like this build to, like, it's a mission as an artist to be able to impact these people. One, has that mission not always been totally clear to you? And two, has that mission changed over the course of your life? Like, what do you want? What did you want your art to serve versus now? Where's that?
Great question. That's a great question.
Because I think, we change as people, our goals change, our lives change.
Everything
and we have
changes.
different
Yes,
goals, right?
it's all fluid, really. Like I said earlier, I never, it would never have crossed my mind in a million years that people would be paying for my work, or my work would be hanging. As soon as I leave here, I have to run up to 120 Park Avenue at the Bloomberg building because I'm showing my work there. And then after that, I have to go up to Harlem at the Dwyer Center at 309 West 23rd Street because my work is showing there. It would never have dawned on me in a million years that this is where my life would be right now. Truthfully, making it out of my 20s was a miracle. Like, I was like, the fuck? Like, when I hit 30, I was like, the fuck? And then when I hit 50, I was like, fuck out of here. Like, so it is a very fluid thing. It always changes.
What is it now?
What is my work now?
Yeah, your mission around your work. All these
Is
showcases.
that part is still the same. My mission is, am I being honest and authentic? Everything else comes from that. All the exhibits, all of the work, all of the collectors, all of that stuff. Like, that's not my mission. I I think that we get caught up in the idea of success and what that's supposed to look like. I define success differently, I think, from most. If I could walk away and say, was I honest? If I could give somebody a photograph, a print of mine, and I'm like, were you touched by this? I'm successful. Did you, not that, did you like it? I don't care.
Well, it's funny you say that because that wasn't the first choice. And then I looked back again and I was thinking more to myself, what is actually touching me, calling to me? And that did call to me the first time I looked through. But I thought, what would look better like on a wall or in this environment? But then I got rid of that. And that's the one that gravitated towards me. And I love that your definition of success is honesty because I think a lot of people, whether it's a medium of film, painting, photography, they're not honest. They serve an outcome. They serve, you look at films, they need to make money and they need to be successful. And that's like, I don't care about the results. Even like I've entered films into festivals and whatnot, and some I've won, some I've lost, but that's not that. All I could say is I was honest and I made something that I like, that touched me as a person.
And all of that other stuff is part of the process. It is. I love that I get to show my work with Art on the Ave or JCal or the Dwyer. I love that I get to sell my work. I love that, I could pay my rent and not be homeless again without smoking crack. I love all of those aspects of it, but that's not my intention. I'm very, I think we have to be very deliberate with where our intentions are. If my intention is to be, famous, then that's what I'm working for. But in that pursuit, Marvin Gaye released the What's Going On album in, I think, either 72 or 73, right?
No, I'm following you on this one.
Oh, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. You could still listen to that today. I don't remember what was the top selling album last year.
Right.
Billie Holiday released Strange Fruit in, I think, 1934. 1934, close to 100 years ago. Southern trees bearing strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the roots. that song still has presence today. Tell me what song was the top number one song last week?
No fucking idea.
No fucking idea. There's a difference. There's a distinction between being famous or getting clicks and likes or um, coming up.
Do you think time can bring about those like iconic pieces though? That sometimes maybe it takes an event.
I think it all comes back to intention. I think it all comes back to the intention of creation.
Whether that intention was discovered now or later, like because it takes
The impact may transition. The vibration may change. The frequency might vary in time. That might stretch or condense in time. But the intention itself shall always remain the same. It starts like you have a seed. You have a seed.
Mm.
And you put the seed in the dirt. Then there's a sprout. Then there's something else. And eventually there's a tree. But there was always the seed. The beginning remains the same. It's a seed. It's something that had intention to sprout. How big the tree or where it, may differ, may vary, but the intention is the seed.
And it's funny because sometimes, yes, that intention is there in a person's body of work, but then one piece they made way down the line gets the attention, and then people start looking back at all of their unrecognized work and see, oh, the intention's been the same this whole way, but they never got that early, recognition.
No, there's a cajillion stories like Vincent van Gogh. One of my greatest inspirations, Vincent van Gogh, not because his amazing body of work, but he sold one painting of his paintings in his lifetime, one, to his brother, Theo, I think, who was just tired of Vincent asking for money. He was like, fuck it, Vincent, just give me the blue one. Here's $20. Just give me the fucking blue one, Vincent. Fuck out of here. I'm tired of you, motherfucker. But he never stopped painting, even though his contemporaries, like, bro, just get a job at the post office, get a pension, settle down, have some kids,
Right.
because you kind of suck at this art thing, bro. It's not going to work for you. But he never stopped painting. There was a photographer, Vivian Mayer, I think her name was, who was a nanny, who would just take pictures, low key. And after her death, they found like these crates of undeveloped film. And instead of throwing away, somehow instead of throwing that shit away, they said, I wonder what these are. Let's go develop them. Brilliant work. Brilliant work. She didn't get recognition as this brilliant photographer that she was. She was a nanny. But her work has impacted generations after her death. Again, the recognition is awesome. I don't begrudge that. But I don't think that should be the forefront of our process. It wasn't when I wrote and produced the Woman video. But that young lady who was pregnant with her second child and had a toddler and was in an abusive relationship watched that film and left that situation. Show me an Oscar better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Show me anything better than that.
That's like the ultimate manifestation of your work
in
real time.
The impact.
Right.
And that I wrote that because of all of my experiences and thoughts and dreams and laughs and tears.
But it takes bravery to be able to do that because everyone can experience those things, right? And it just takes someone that will refuse to not be scared to act on that and put it out there and try to help.
I was lucky to be raised in a commune in my formative years, because my foundation is predicated on the the collective. And then there's a part of me because of my family, my grandmothers and my grandfathers, my mom, my dad, and the people, my ancestors now, the people who reared me, raised me, and loved me. Kim O'Quinn, my teacher, my ex Daryl, just all of these people who I've had in my life to create and put, glue and stucco to create me. I've also been people who give me the idea of I don't give a fuck, if you like me or don't, if you like my work or don't, and there's a freedom in that. Um, I don't judge my work. Some people think I'm brilliant. Some people think I suck. I don't give a fuck. My only job is to be honest, and that's where the courage is. Is again in that honesty. I'm only as sick as my secrets. Is a great phrase.
Mm.
Term. And the things of me I hide are the things of me that you could hurt me with. But when I'm confessing, when I'm sharing, when I'm educating, enlightening, or learning, you can't hurt me with my shit. So, like, naked under my clothes, naked under my clothes. The clothes are a metaphor for all the shit we put on.
Right.
The job, the sex, the race, the money, the blah, 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 blah. And what happens, and I said this to you before, what happens is that, you look in the mirror and you have so much stuff on you that you can't recognize yourself. But when we all stand before one another, butt ass naked, metaphorically, and be like, oh, you got a mole there, so do I. That's where the courage comes into play. It's having the courage to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to be truthful.
And I feel like there's a spectrum though on the artist scale because it's not like, okay, you're an artist, you're honest. There's inhonest artists or people that are scared to be honest as artists, and there's people that are kind of in the middle that are semi-honest, and then there's the people on the other end which are very brutally honest in their work as in terms of their perspective and their identity.
I think that has a lot to do with what face am I wearing today. Um, because there's a difference between being an artist and being an entertainer. You know, there's, I can't begrudge any, I'm not going to say that. Certain people could make $1 billion industry out of a sex tape. You could be as vacuous or prolific as you want to be. Some artists could duct tape a banana to a fucking wall,
Yeah.
and it could sell for $180,000. While this guy here, who's a fucking brilliant artist, can't pay his rent in a hotel for a night. I mean, there's a difference, and I think in this state, on this day, right now, in my being, that there's a distinction between being an entertainer and being an artist.
And it's hard because I struggle with that because I understand that with social media, the entertaining is what gets people to click.
Mm-hmm.
And, you look at all the reels and the short form. I personally hate it, but I know that's how I need to get people to access my work.
But see, that's not a bad thing. It's actually, in many ways, is a good thing. Because if I start off with the seed, the intention, um, and understand that this thing over here is not the root, but just the branch. You know,
The avenue of getting
yeah,
it to people.
yeah.
Right.
So this is just a branch, and if they grab onto the branch, maybe they'll climb the tree. You
Right.
know, maybe then we could expose them to a different reality or sensibility. Maybe then, because this is what we're working with now. I'm
Right.
56 years
Right.
old.
Right.
I'm the bridge generation. I went from rotary phones to iPhone 17. We didn't have this shit growing
Right.
up.
Right.
I'm grateful that I'm getting to bear witness to this, and I'm even more grateful that it happened when it happened and not when I was a youth, because we experience things differently.
I feel like earlier youth. I'm 22, but
Hmm.
even just like my earlier youth, I was just at the cutoff. I feel like with kids with the phones, like because I got a phone. Again, this may seem like crazy to you, but for me, like looking back now at kids now, I feel like I got a phone at very old age. It was maybe like 16, and I know that's like to
Uh-huh.
you that's way underage to get a phone, even in your generation,
Yeah.
obviously. But for me, I'm like so thankful that I got some of my childhood away from that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. But we also have to be able to navigate and articulate in this new language of technology and the advance of technology and the transformation, the quickness of the rapidity of it, how quickly now we're in AI. So now it's like, okay. And, you can't shy away from this stuff because this is the language. But, you know, it's great to be versed in this new language. And hopefully you'll be able to show them a different way of speech as well in the process of this.
It's like a portal
Hmm.
to the unmanifested world that they
Yeah.
don't know yet, that
Yeah.
you're going to give them.
Yeah. So like Stranger Things, you have the
Yeah,
upside down
right,
world.
right, right, right.
That's the technology and the clicks and the
Right,
reels and shit. And maybe we could get them to the right side world, like the
right,
real
right,
Hawkins is, where the
right.
actual world is happening. But you know, um, it's all part of the process that we get to experience that informs our intellect, our body, and most importantly, our spirit. So that's where then we could be more, then we could be honest and vulnerable in our work in the process of the creation. Not to just hate something because I hate it, but to be curious as to why do I hate this. I want to do a photo series on racists, on Klan people. Like I want to do a script on sundown cities, because I find it strikingly, amazingly interesting. I'm really curious about whatever the human condition led you to this perspective. I have a series that I'm been printing a lot that I shot, I think in 2012, called Queens and Kings, where I got to spend a
Right,
year on
yeah, I
the
saw that.
street, with
Yeah.
these homeless trans kids. Because at the end of the day, when we break all of this shit down, we're more intrinsically connected than we are different.
Correct.
So this technology may be the portal of that brings them into your work, your perspective, the way you articulate your creative process.
What I find interesting is, going back to the story that you want to develop. I find it interesting the heightened versions of messages that kind of have already kind of been done before. So, for example, like the film Sinners,
Mm-hmm.
with it's got vampires, it's got crazy supernatural elements, but there's a core message there that drew people that wouldn't have drawn people in if it was just about that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
Yeah.
if everyone sees the vampires, the guns, and the violence,
Mm-hmm.
and the vampire, like they love that, right? They love the A-list actors,
Mm-hmm.
Michael B. Jordan, like that is what draws people. Like going back to the real, like that's what draws people, but then they stay because of the message and the depth and the intention of the story. But it's almost like it has to be told at this like extreme extent to get people to see it.
It doesn't have to be. Um, It doesn't have to be. I think that's an avenue. I think for artists, is also finding different streets to walk down, different paths. And some may be, wider or
Right.
cemented. Some may be just dirt roads. Vincent van Gogh sold one painting in his lifetime to his brother. Vincent van Gogh is one of the biggest names in the world of art 300 years after his death. So, again, it's like, you might not get that Tony or the Oscar for this, but, you know, um, 10 years or 5 years or 2 years after you release this project, somebody might like, oh shit, and then it might go viral or
Right.
whatever. So again, it just leads to its intention of, you know, and you do navigate through the way through the the um the process of creating your work, how you navigate through it. But again, for me, as long as my seed is pure, the growth and the manifestation of that seed is going to be what it's going to be.
But you have to also stick with the project and get it to the finish line, right?
Oh
Because I
yeah,
feel like some
absolutely.
people they stop halfway.
No, well, that's the darkness again to me.
Right.
That's like stop. You don't do it. Those are the obstacles. I wrote and produced all of my stuff, and I paid for all of my stuff. Um, like I said, I started my first production company in 2015. No idea what I was doing. But what I did know is I didn't want to have to ask anyone else permission to do my own shit.
Right.
And I didn't want anyone else owning my shit. This is my shit. You know, I put them out on YouTube. If 100 people see it, that's 100 people see it. If 30,000 people see it, that's 30,000 people. If 10 million people see the motherfucker, there's 10 million people who see the machine. My intention was really clear. This is what I'm doing.
Right.
This is the story I'm telling. Whether it's received or, you know, and of course, that's the other side of art. Where's my motherfucking Oscar? This shit was brilliant. Do you see? I paid for this shit. It's like I
Right.
did this. I worked extra shifts. I did what I had to do to make it happen. And you do what you have to do to make it happen because you create your wire. Your wire demands it of you. Because if you choose to stop, if you fall into the darkness and allow the darkness, not the light, to inform you, because the darkness has this intention. The darkness says, I can't have that motherfucker in the house with no lights on receive the frequency that you are uniquely constructed to emit to turn those lights on. So the darkness is like, I'm gonna make this motherfucker turn this shit down, like shut this shit off. You just do what you do because you have to do it.
Do you think sometimes the doing what you need to do it, that is the project, you're getting those signals of what you need to do from the project speaking to you? Because I feel like once you're deep in a project, like right now this film that I'm editing currently, it's now speaking to me on what it needs.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm editing it, I get inspired to do more because it's like it's not speaking obviously, but I just can tell that
No,
it's
yeah, yeah.
giving me
It's
something,
speaking.
and I'm like things I never would have thought
Mm-hmm.
before, but it is now an entity in the
Mm-hmm.
world. Like I've now taken it out of here. It's in a timeline on DaVinci Resolve, and now it's starting to tell me, and I'm listening, right? And I think you need to key into that listening
Always.
to it.
You know, if what they say about matter is true, that matter cannot be constructed or destroyed, then our thoughts are matter. Our thoughts are vibrations. We don't think in silence. We think in words and visions. That's frequency. That's vibration. That's energy. Because
Right.
energy is matter. It becomes kinetic. It's just about aligning oneself with that energy, and finding the balance. And what I've found in my experience, particularly when it comes to film, because it's a bit of a different beast, it's a kind of a different
Right, of
entity
course.
because it's team thing, and you need this and you need that, and this
Production
person and
and
this,
yeah.
all of these things. But it still works in the same way, I think, like the seed. If I just put it in the dirt, don't water it, don't give it light, then it's not gonna manifest. If I put it in the dirt and overwater it, it's gonna drown. If I put it in the dirt and put it in the closet, it's not gonna get the light needed to required to grow. Is understanding what that seed needs to manifest to come to grow into its full potential.
But also not knowing when to release it too, because I feel like there's a point where like you're working on it too much,
Yeah.
and then it's getting too big.
Mhm.
Like I feel like though, with this project specifically, it's finally told me like the last thing, and like I feel it. Like it's just a feel thing. You know when it's finished.
Yeah, yeah.
It's in your heart. You understand it.
That's being able to pay attention. And again, my ego, because I fucked up a lot of paintings this way, where my ego says, instead of listening to the canvas, where the canvas says, "Baby, I'm done. Don't touch me anymore." My ego's like, "No, no, no. I can put some red right
Yeah,
there,"
yeah, yeah.
and I'm fucked. I lost the painting because
Right.
my ego is gonna be like, "Oh no, no, I got you. I got you. No, that red, yeah, that's gonna
Yeah,
be
yeah.
dope."
Right.
The painting, the God voice is saying, "Baby, I'm done. I don't need you to touch me anymore." The ego's like, "I'm gonna fuck this shit up,"
Yeah. Right. Right.
and I fuck this shit up.
It's a
It's being able to
balance.
balance and listen properly, listen, and creation has a weight to it. It has a gravity to it, but it should never be heavy.
I like that a lot.
Thank you. I just came
I
up with
like
that.
that a lot. No, that was. I love that. That's the title of the. That's the title. No, because it could become a burden almost too if you put too much pressure, right?
Yeah, it should have gravity, but it shouldn't be heavy.
I love that because I think sometimes we get caught up in it where we put too much pressure on ourselves and then the product suffers
Mhm.
because of whether it's the expectation of wanting to win something, whether it's just overthinking, I think is a problem too. Overthinking the project because for me, I look at this project. I've been working on it for months now. I'm looking at it every day with different moods. Let's say, I had a shitty morning. I come in with a bad mood, and then the next day I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. I treat the project differently, and like that arc of like you're coming back to this thing day in day out with different moods and experiences and attitudes that can shape it and give those
Talk to it.
nuances.
Talk
Yeah.
to it. Talk to it before you sit down. See, okay, this is where I'm at. What could I give you today? What do you need from me today? I'm at this intersection. You're my destination. Are you giving me a yellow light, red light, or green light? Should I fuck with you today? Should I go?
Having the ability to leave too, not work on it.
Having
maybe.
the ability to leave and not work on it, but being in tune with it. Again, for me, is if I'm standing in front of a canvas, if I'm standing behind a camera, if I'm writing a poem, it's a spiritual conversation. I can't be the only one talking. I also have to listen to what the project, what the canvas, what the photograph needs from me. Also, it's a conversation.
You think it's also an act of service? Like you are the lower one, kind of, and giving it.
It's
Things.
always an act of service. Creation should always be an act of service.
Right. Right.
You're being given something to give to someone. You're being given something to give to someone else.
Where's that coming from?
Some people call it God. Some people call it Jah Ra, the Orishans, the universe, the frequency. It comes with many different
The
names.
source.
The
People say the
source,
source. You know.
yeah, is aligning oneself to be open. Like I said, with that telephone wire, if it's in a knot or something, or more accurately, let's say a stream. It starts from a source. It starts from this one
Right.
snowflake, and then it becomes many, and then it becomes water, and then it melts, and then it burrows down this gravity into the ocean,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
Now, if your channel is open, you have a path. If someone builds a dam, if I build a dam, I'm blocking off that frequency.
Right.
Then so from this point where the mountain starts to where the dam is built, all of these motherfuckers are going in a drought
Yeah.
because that water can't nourish their plants. So all these motherfuckers gonna die.
Right.
So just don't build your own dam when you know the stream is supposed to go to the ocean. You know your path.
Do you think you've gained a unique awareness to these things because of the multifaceted artist you are in terms of you're a filmmaker, painter, you write poetry? Do these things, like being a multifaceted artist, does that allow you to enrich the works, one gives to the other?
Yeah, absolutely. You're being informed in various ways because you're having different experiences in the process of creation with each. Again, my photography taught me how to see shit that I never saw before. Like, oh my God, look at the light in that tree, and do you see that?
Yeah,
And you're
yeah, you
like,
get
and they're like,
excited,
what the
right?
fuck you talking about, Sage? So I'll be like, but no, look, it's
Yeah,
right there. Do you
yeah.
see it? Like, I don't know, this motherfucker's crazy. And so that will
Right.
inform how I shade this canvas, which will inform how I contact this emotion that will write this poem. Like you really know nothing of me in spite of the silver platter that I presented to you, garnished with my soul. You still know nothing at all. Despite how I felt you, how I knew all of your needs, you know nothing of me at all. I tore each cemented gold-plated platinum encased brick of my emotional walls down in agonizing effort, leaving my hands bloody in silent hurt, pain, grief, my heart hoping that you were its healer with each beat. And, being able to explore imagery through words because I've been informed of imagery and photography, and I could see that the shadow in that tree that they don't see, that informs the internal composition that I'm able to articulate, that informs the canvas and how I approach that, because now I could take my ego out of play, and say, "Oh, this is what needs to be created. This is what you need to say. How could I be of service to you?"
Was that a poem that you just recited
Yeah,
before? One of yours?
yeah. The dangers
Which
of I
poem?
love you.
Was that was in
Naked under my
right,
clothes. Yeah.
yeah.
You really know nothing of me. In spite of the silver platter that I presented to you, garnished with my soul, you still know nothing at all. Despite how I felt you, how I knew all of your needs, you know nothing of me at all. I tore each cemented gold-plated platinum encased brick of my emotional walls down in agonizing effort, leaving my hands bloody in silent hurt, pain, grief, my heart hoping that you were its healer with each beat. To show you those sacred parts of me. The parts that prevented me from being independently happy, the dangers of I love you. I, for you, erected monuments in a single day, created continents. For you, I resonated poetry. I sung a lullaby for every tear that you cried. For you, I would have died. A candlelit house full of my love should have been of no surprise. A scented bubble bath of Egyptian musk waited for us to slip in. At sunbreak, my lips would make you rise. I would relieve your stress at the end of my day. Sprinkle rose petals upon the beds before we played. I would lick the spots that you said did not tickle as tears of laughter flowed from your eyes. And yet before me you stand in this oblivious stupor, looking straight through me as though I were a complete stranger. 60-60 visions, was I just your plaything? The dangers of I love you. The tears cascade deep within me like waterfalls, washing away my sense of security, serenity evaporating rapidly, devastation with no protection. You see, I tore down my walls, each of them all. Stripped, barren, nude, white, broken, empty became my reality because my identity was based on the lies you perpetuated, the facade that you created. The dangers of I love you are when you still care, but you know you have to leave.
I'm getting emotional now. Wow.
So, your work informs your work. Your life is the alphabet, and everything you experience is just another letter. Doesn't make it good or bad. It makes it a tool. So if you don't judge it in those binary ways, I'm only as sick as my secrets. And when my ego is in front of the canvas, then I fail. Because I'm not authentic, I'm not real, I'm not. And the ego's not a bad thing. It's not like the boogeyman. It may be just telling you, hey, babe, maybe we got some shit to look at to be able to produce this the right way.
Those poems that you included in Naked Under My Clothes, there's about 22 of them, correct? How did you go about picking the ones, crafting this narrative, and how long? I mean, these poems must have been a collection of different time periods that you wrote them at during your life. And did you just have a sort of selection process? You were going through all these and building this?
I was on 36. Oh, let's start here. A friend of mine, Carla Radford, was pregnant with her second child, Guy, who is now someone's wife, which is crazy. And I did a painting for Carla. And when I finished the painting, I kept hearing these words, and they were like relentless. Evolution personified Darwin's theory squared, a universal enigma broken down mathematically into monthly intervals equal to the number of eggs dropped, one simplified perfection, independent yet divisible by infinity. Fallopian tubes reveal the triangular trait. Hair whispers the mysteries of time. Indelible grace, soft as God's hands grasp love, captured by a smile. Understand, man, I am life. Jesus incarnate, your rules do not apply. Let me see you give life when I die. Hear me, see me, feel me, for I am the Big Bang, an organic orgasm spilling rain upon the deserts, creating a monsoon that blows away all destruction because God gave me woman. Clearly should be read by a woman, but those words kept going in around and around. And like I said, I'm a horrible speller. Like I misspell my own name. It's like, but it was so insistent that I had to write it down. And that was the first poem I wrote. And so I started exploring that poetry, and I would just write down. Now, I didn't know how to type, or I had no idea computer skills at all.
So that initial poem sparked your curiosity, you're saying?
Yeah.
What about it sparked it?
That I wrote it,
Yeah.
that was given to me.
You just
that because I didn't come up with it. It was given to me. I was like, oh, that's interesting. What else you got? And then I started writing poetry, and I lost my apartment because I was a drug addict and wasn't paying my rent. And the friend of mine who was paying for the apartment that I lost let me stay in his house on his couch. And I was still using. That was on 36 in like Normandy, in LA. And I was, by this time I had like a bunch of papers written down, and he had a computer that I was trying to learn how to type on. And I heard this voice one day. I was waking up, and I woke up, and I heard this voice that, Sage, you're going to write a book. I'm like, fuck out of here. I barely know how to turn the computer on. What are you talking about? He's like, no, Sage, baby. I said, "You're gonna write a book. It's gonna be great. It's a collection of your poetry. You already got I already gave you the poems, so just put them together and write a book." Like, I don't know what you're talking about, bro. I went to Kinko's and I finally became obedient. That's a very important thing when you're hearing the voice, when your work is talking to you, is becoming obedient,
Obedient.
obedient, and understanding that that energy is talking to you with specificity and purpose. That there's a reason it's talking to you. So I go to Kinko's and I cut and paste this book together, literally cut with scissors, pasted with glue, and I would take it to Kinko's and I would make copies. Um, and when I when I didn't have money to have them staple the binding to staple it together, I would just wrap it with a rubber band. Like, you just do what you can
You
do,
do what you
bro.
gotta
Like,
do.
you just make it happen. And I ended up selling like 2,000 copies of Naked Under My Clothes out of my bag. And then later came the CD, the same thing. Hear that God voices, Sage, you're gonna do the CD. Fuck out of here. I never went to a recording studio. I don't know what you're talking about, bro. I've never stood in front of a microphone like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Obedient. And so what I wanted to do with this project into the book was just, instead of just random poems, take you through a story. And the same thing with the CD, and the same thing with the films. But similar, same story, but expressed differently. Like the films are far more visceral than the book. The book, when you read the book, is more internal. Is more, your is a private thing. Um, to the films, where it's more like a guttural thing when you're watching it, and the things you can relate to or the things you can't. Um, but yeah, it's the same process.
So the poems, though, you wrote you received them, right?
Yeah.
And you opened your awareness up to them.
Mm-hmm.
How long did they take to write? Like individually, they just
It's kind of like
range.
painting. Some
Yeah.
took minutes, and I couldn't tell you honestly
Right.
in the process. I remember writing "So Sad the Longing for Love." It was like a quarter to 12. I was very lonely, and I was walking a half a mile to the bus stop to go to Hollywood to sit in a bar. And I remember hearing the words coming to me for that piece. Growing pains might have taken a different amount of time. And so, like, I guess I don't remember when Kai is like 23 now. So most of the 23 or 24. So most of the poems were written 23, 24 years ago, like in a pool. And I was writing profusely, then started hosting poetry nights in LA. And but I couldn't tell you again, is that creative process where,
Yeah.
I like somebody asked me how long it took me to do this painting. I'm like, it could have been 5 minutes or 5 years. I couldn't tell you. Like, I don't know. Because you're disassociated from the physical
Right.
and working specifically from the spiritual
And
plane.
that's what you need. You can't focus on the time. You
Yeah,
just got to
yeah.
do it.
It doesn't exist.
Right. So adapting these poems to the screen, there must have been a lot of challenges or nuances with that, right? Or did you just come natural? You just did what you came natural to?
I was obedient. I was obedient. It says, okay, Sage, now you do the films. And I started writing the script, and I wanted to tell different stories, and have different, and had each story told differently, right? So what I mean by that is, like, I knew the through lines of the characters. Like, I know all of the characters, their lives, their arcs, their transitions. In the first film, Growing Pains, I wanted to tell the kid's story. The little boy whose mother um, was at one point a great mom, but got hooked up in drugs, and the stepdad or the guy was like this bad guy or damaged guy. I don't like using the word bad guy, but he was a damaged human being, and she got kind of caught up in that thing, where now her son, whom she loved, was in a dangerous situation, right? And at the end of Growing Pains, there's one of the characters in the living room. Now she's a prostitute. The mom's now a prostitute. She goes, takes one guy into the room to make her money or whatever, and the other guy sitting on the couch goes into the bathroom where the little boy's in the tub, and the guy's intention is to molest the little boy. And so that's important because we're telling his story in See Me, the third installation. The second installation is the mother's transition. The boy in the first one ends up shooting the guy who went to molest him in the bathroom and runs out the house. The gunshot alerts the mother. The mother sees the body and she runs out the house.
So these are people that you've written.
Yeah.
You're not documenting a live event. But these are translations of thoughts in your head manifesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Some loosely based on my life or my perception of my life at a certain time, but it wasn't autobiographical by any stretch of the imagination. And the mother part was very important because I wrote that specifically for Tabitha Brown. And the third installation, played beautifully by Chucky Love, I wanted to explore the idea of monsters. Like his intention to go and to molest a kid was monstrous.
Right.
And my question in that is, are monsters born or created? So I wanted to explore his life and, all of the things that he had gone through to lead him to that decision.
Right.
And so each of them, and then there's a bunch of ancillary characters who I'm going to revisit this whole project to make it into a series, because it's like, well, this person is a stranger to this person, but knows this person who's their ex-boyfriend or whatever. So there's all this like intricate web that ties everyone together.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting though, sometimes drawing from people that you know and adapting them into your stories, but they're not exactly the person, but they're like their behaviors, and you get inspired. Like I talked about this with people that have come before on the podcast about drawing these parallels from people in your life, but you don't have to name them the person, but they're the seed of the person is there.
Mm-hmm.
It can help you inspire other people who view your work, whether they are like that person or they just feel more connected because it's really a human you're talking about, but they don't know that. Yeah. But they feel connected. It's like masquerading it, but they in connecting someone with a real person in your life.
I think too, as an artist, you you feed off of the buffet of your life, and there'll be those moments that this is a reference of or an echo of this person, and then there are experiences that you have that are so profound that this is what happened. Because I have other projects too, like scripts that I'm working on. Precious Little Darlings is going to be heavily influenced on real life situations. Another script I have called Broken Glass is going to be explicitly reflective of, not, because lawsuits, I can't say, well, this is so and so and so and so.
Right.
But I could use specific moments from my perspective of what they did, said, and how they acted.
Right.
And that'll influence the entire project. The veil may be a little bit thinner than the masquerade, metaphorically speaking.
Right. So I guess if you had to wrap up everything in a bow, and because artists will be watching this, maybe people who view art aren't artists themselves, but maybe are inspired to be an artist. What advice do you have to someone that wants to explore themselves through art?
Every one of us is an artist. Every single one of us is an artist. I think that is important to understand, that we are each Although all the same and intrinsically connected, we are each uniquely constructed to create and transmit through that wire what we were created to transmit through that wire.
Mm.
I didn't know I could paint until I started painting. Certainly didn't know I could do photography until I started shooting. You know, my biggest critic is my own head. The biggest liar in my life is me. Every time it told me I couldn't do something or I wasn't worthy or I wasn't good enough, just to prevent me from exercising. And, you know, I was not good at any of it when I started, but I became great when I started judging it. I became great when I stopped judging it. You know, our biggest job is to be honest, and this world is in chaos right now on so many different levels, is in chaos. And it requires each of us, artists, creatives, intellects, writers, philosophers, poets, to put on our khakis and our army boots and get on the front lines, because we are the only ones who can turn this shit around. Throughout history, every conquering civilization came into a space, the first thing they attack are the artists. The artists, the preachers, the philosophers, the writers. There's a reason we're always the first attacked. It's because they know that we are the ones who make the biggest impact. We don't have to necessarily or exclusively speak to you visually. We speak to you spiritually. And that's where the transition begins. That's where the impact is felt. That's what they're most afraid of. So be honest, be vulnerable, be courageous, be curious. Whenever you hear that voice tell you what you can't do, laugh at it. Be like, oh, sweetie, that's cute. How you know I can't do this shit? I ain't tried it before. What you talking about? I can't do. I'm an award-winning artist. My shit's been published. I have films. I also slept in Penn Station or on trains in abandoned buildings in Brooklyn. I also picked out of a garbage can to eat a piece of pizza that this guy threw away in Penn Station. I also did things in adult bookstores that I'm not particularly proud of, but got to have that experience too. You know, I am uniquely constructed to omit or transmit that God's voice, that spirit, that frequency. That only I could do. And if you're out there and if you're watching, if you're telling yourself that you can't do something, if you're afraid to do something, understand that that's just the darkness trying to deter you from doing what you're created to do. Don't let it win. Because if you stop, then you're adding to the chaos and not the solution, not the spirit. All we do is have spiritual conversations. Just got to pay attention to what's being said. So there's my bow.
I love that. I love that monologue. I think that's you harping on so many different avenues, but one that stood out to me was just being aware and also obedient. Like those are the two so important. Just people my age too that are new to this and are trying to get a message out there that is different and not really widely conventional or accepted. So it's that obedience is what is needed, and respect for the work, and what you have to offer. So I think that this whole conversation can inspire so many artists on different levels and experiences and backgrounds. So I really appreciate your time here. This has been amazing.
A blast, man.
This has been awesome. Cool. That's a wrap.
All right. Thank you, Billy.
Of course.
Appreciate it, Billy. Thank you. This was awesome. Thank you.